Hey everybody, I've been getting more responses from my Facebook post where I said I would edit some of your photos, and here's a couple ground rules. Please only send me photos that you don't mind me doing whatever I want with them. So I might share them on YouTube, I might share them on Facebook. They're gonna be very public, so only share stuff that you're comfortable with sharing that way. Understand that I'm gonna take which ones I think best for this platform and edit those. I'm also looking for photos that are camera raw, but I will edit the cell phone pictures if you have them. But try to send as best quality photos as you have, because then I'm able to do more editing with them in the program. Today I edited, and you'll see that in this presentation, a picture that I took in Maine, and so that's gonna be the first one, but then next I'm gonna dive into your photos. So send those photos, I'll put an email in the description of this, and yeah, I look forward to seeing your stuff. Donnie, Rosie, I wanted to take a chance to edit some photos and just kind of show you what I would do in the process. I'll be using Lightroom to make these edits. I would highly recommend that program to you. Editing does this: it helps you review what you've taken and look for ways to get better, and then also take what you have taken and make it better. So it's a great process. I would highly encourage you to take the time to edit your photos. That's going to make you a much better photographer. Let's jump in and let me know what you think.
All right, I was able to go to Acadia National Park and take some pictures. I definitely have a thing for lighthouses and love to take pictures of lighthouses whenever I can. And so here is Bass Harbor Lighthouse, if I understand correctly. And this is the way I took the picture right here. So this is completely reset. You can hit that reset button, and this is how I took it. And so there's like a million different ways you could edit this photo, but where I ended up with this photo for now, and this does change, and there's different different edits for different reasons. Kind of depends on what you're doing with your photo, but this is kind of one that I ended with here. And even as I look at this again, maybe I make this a wee bit darker like that. So just want to walk through the process of trying to get the photo, from the way I shot it here to something like this. And so I just want to go through some of my process here and hopefully get as close to that as I can. I did save this as a preset, and if you email me, I can send you this preset that I have here. And this is actually the preset. You say, why does that look so different? Well, the difference is really just bringing up the exposure. And when you work with a preset, you still have to change some of those things based on how the picture was taken. So that's where we got there. But let's see if we can just jump in and take this picture here and get it a little bit more like this picture here. All right, so first of all, we're going to look at the exposure and bring that up just a little bit. I'm going to bring the highlights down. That's going to be, well, if you scroll this over, you can see which part are the highlights. It can be these whites and stuff like that. We're going to bring that down just a little bit. Bring the shadows up. That's going to bring a little bit more information into my photograph there without blowing out some of the highlights. And so that just brings that in. I could bring up those here, but then I start to lose information in the highlighted areas. So it's better sometimes, depending on what you're doing, to bring up some of those shadows. And so we'll do that there. And then I'll just play with these things. A lot of this is just feel, where you're trying to create a little bit more contrast in the photo. I'm going to bring up the texture now, or the clarity. So something that's important about these, generally I don't bring up these, which give them kind of a harsher, we'll go to the extreme, you can see how harsh and contrasty that is. Kind of brings that up. A lot of times you do that with people, it just does not work. It just doesn't work. It's not complementary to the skin. But if you do it and you make it come across rough, that matches this kind of craggy rock that's sticking out here. So that's why I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring up the dehaze. Some say this should just be haze, because you can either dehaze it or add haze, depending on the setting. I want to bring that up just a little bit. To me, it kind of just brings through the stronger elements, or knocks them out. And that's kind of how I'd kind of define that way. I'll bring down the saturation just a little bit. Now, this is going to be hard to replicate, this next part, because I've been working with my curves to make some edits in the tone curve, as opposed to doing everything with HSL and color. And it seems like you're able to pass this preset on to other photos a little bit easier if you do it this way, as opposed to trying to edit all of those colors in this area here. Now, I'll still, after I've kind of gotten that straight a little bit, I'll still go down here and change some things. I usually bring my hue a little bit more towards the teal side. Often I'll bring the saturation down just a little bit, and for this one, well, we'll leave the luminance about where it's at. A lot of times the magenta I'll bring down and knock that out of the photo. There's not a lot there. If you scroll this back and forth, you can see there's not a lot of magenta there in the first place. Nor is, well, magenta, and then there's purple. There's not much of either color. I don't find that I see those colors happening a lot, either in a lot of my photos. We'll go to the aqua, we'll bring that down. You can see there's a little bit of aqua. You can see it here. See when I flash this back and forth, you can see it popping up there. We'll just bring this down a little bit. I just looking to simplify the colors in this photograph, so there's not too much going on. I want to have this blue working, the white, and some of the orange that's happening here as well. So greens, not a lot of greens going on. If you push it all the way, you see some green in the rock and the green in some of the shadows. We're just going to bring that down just a little bit. I usually don't bring these saturation points all the way down, because then you can actually kind of lose some information, it feels like, from some of those areas that may have some of those colors. I generally bring yellow down just a little bit, and then it kind of depends on what I'm doing. I'll usually make the hue of the orange, of orange a little bit more towards this orange spectrum over here, and I think we can pretty much just leave this where it's at. Maybe we'll bring down the luminance of that just a little bit. If we go all the way up with it, it kind of burns out these rocks, and I don't find that helpful. And I'll usually bring down my reds just a little bit, albeit not quite as much, and then maybe go a tiny bit orange with this hue over here as well. Depending on what picture we're working with here, we could change this, but it's not actually changing that much, so we'll just kind of leave it in the middle. Our split tones are interesting. You can, add some blues and some crazy things, and you scroll this up and you can see all the crazy things you do there. I find that I don't like to mess with the highlights too much at all, so we'll leave that just right where it's at. The shadow, on the other hand, sometimes I like to bring in just a little bit of orange to the shadow. We can see there I've taken it out, and here I've added it. Now that's a lot of it, right? That's way too much. But maybe just a tiny bit to bring some orange into some of the shadows and some of these rocks, just a little bit, kind of helps us. Just to show you where we've come so far, let's reset the photo. Started like that, and now we're to this point. We're working our way down here. Sharpening, don't need to change that too much. Noise reduction, this is a very clear photo. There's no noise we need to worry about, so we'll just keep working down. The lens correction, I believe I shot this on, yes, my 17-40. I shot it at 17 millimeters, which means there's a little bit of a barrel and a little bit of this vignette. And the vignette you're seeing here is all natural. We've not added any vignette at this point. So that lens naturally adds some vignette to the photo. And so if we hit this, it's going to kind of flatten things out and correct it. And there's a built-in correction into Lightroom for this lens. And so yeah, we'll just do that a little bit. Maybe I'll bring it back a little bit, bring back the vignetting, the natural vignetting that was there. Just this would be all the way, not fixed, and this is just a little bit. So we'll do that there. I don't always, sometimes I really want that super wide angle look to the photo, and I won't hit this profile correction, but today we'll hit it a little bit and see what we get. I'm just going to leave this transforms, all kinds of crazy things you can do there, but we're not going to touch it. Vignette, you know, maybe we'll add just a tiny bit of vignette. The rule I would say about vignette is that we don't want it to be noticeable. The moment that vignette is really noticeable, I think you've pushed it too far, and it's something that beginner photographers often push too much. We can go down to the grain, and I don't know, it's kind of fun to add a little bit of grain. This would be like a crazy amount of grain, and this would be none at all. Sometimes just a little bit gives it kind of a more artistic, timeless feel to it. All right, coming to the calibration here, and this can be a really powerful tool, and we'll mess around with it a little bit. I don't think I need to change the tint too much. I would just move this across and see if there's something I really like there, and I think it's just fine where it's at. The nice thing, this being outside photography, your lighting is very natural. The white balance wasn't bad to begin with. We'll return to that in a minute. And so there's not too much we need to do with fixing some of those things. A lot of times I'll bring my hue just a little bit this way and the saturation of those things down just a little bit. Here would be extreme of that either way, and I would just mess with these. Actually, I might bring the saturation down just a wee bit with this one. I don't want to be oversaturated. That's an easy thing to have happen, you know, as well, is it just gets a little too saturated and just burns your eyes with color. And I don't think sometimes when we bake in a lot of these colors that are very strong like this, it kind of doesn't age well, you know. It's kind of like a trendy shirt. It looks cool one day, and then a short time after that you can't believe why you ever wore it. So we're not going to do too much that way. Bring down this red, primary red, just a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of get me, you know, at least close to where I want to be. It's not identical to what I have with the preset. This is the preset, and this is what I, you know, came to walking through it. Not even sure that I don't like this better than what my preset had for me. You can fall into kind of a hole with presets and go, you know, lean on them too much, and a lot of times we need to, you know, look at every single photo independently. However, presets can bring some consistency to your look and feel, and when you mess with these colors, you want to start to do the same thing over and over so that you're able to establish a look and feel that's going to be consistent with you. And so I feel like I'm still daily working on my look and feel and how I want to be consistent in that. But this is yeah, this is where I find myself today. So a couple more things, just, you know, how we would start with this photo, and one is getting the white balance correct. You can use this little color picker here and go on like a neutral target, and it tells you that right there, and click on that and it'll color correct it. Now I feel like that's just too blue, but at least gives me a reference point of what it thinks. And so I think I'm pretty close. I think the whites are white in this photo, and that's something that's really helped you when it comes to white balance. The other thing is the cropping, which we haven't talked too much about. For this photograph, it's a little bit different. I mean, the fact that this is on the side of the hill is a little bit challenging. Over the time of being here, we figured out maybe, you know, the best ways to take this picture, and I kind of liked this view that we found ourselves on the front side of this, looking back towards the lighthouse. Wouldn't mind maybe being a little bit higher or something, but you know, you work what you get, and it takes time, probably even to sometimes learn an area. We know from like the golden ratio and the rule of thirds that if we break our photograph up in, you know, 2/3, 1/3, and often put our subject on the cross section of thirds, that it's helpful. And so there's a lot I'm trying to include in this photo to show the context. So So I think I might do something like that. It is helpful though to click on this and then you hit O on your keyboard and you can see different grids and different layouts and get different ideas. Like for this, you may say, well, you know, maybe I want to bring it over just a little bit and do something like that. And that's very nice. I like how that kind of pulls together for the eye. With the distortion, I think this photo almost makes it look like the lighthouse is leaning downhill, and that's, I'm not sure that's my favorite. However, if I look at what is straight, I can look at my horizon here, and when I click on the grids and go to straighten it, I can see that it's pretty straight. Maybe just a little bit of straightening to go that way. It's pretty straight, and that's what you want to look for. You want the things that you know are level, and you know the water is level. You want to level that up with your grid lines to make sure that photograph is going to be level. I've got a little bit of a triangle going on here with this rock and maybe leading up towards our subject, and I like that. Like this kind of clean open space, like how this wedge comes across from the top corner up here down to the bottom corner. So there's some things there. Feel free to grab this photo and edit it and send it back and send some thoughts, but I think this is where I'm going to leave this photo for today. And I tell you, I might come back and do, you know, vastly different things, but I think this is, you know, this is a good ending point for this one for me.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that little edit. If you did, let me know. If you have any questions, let me know that as well, and we'll try to answer those. We look forward to seeing you next time.